What starts as a simple inconvenience, running out of gas, quickly spirals into a nightmare. In these three terrifying true stories, strangers become predators, good intentions mask dark motives, and isolation turns deadly. From shadowy highways in Texas to rain-soaked roads in Oregon, these survivors face the kind of fear no one prepares for. These aren't just stories about empty tanks. They're warnings about what can happen when you're stranded, alone, and vulnerable. Stranded on Route 90. It was 2005. I had just turned 18 and was living in Uvalde, Texas, a small, low-income town where life moved slow and options were limited. I was attending the local community college, mostly because it was all my family could afford. One of my closest friends from high school, Andrew, had moved to San Antonio for school, and he often invited me to come hang out for the weekend. It was only an hour-and-a-half drive, just a straight shot down Route 90. That Friday, I packed a small bag, jumped into my beat-up 95 Toyota pickup truck, and hit the road around 3 p.m. The gas gauge didn't work, hadn't for years, so I relied on resetting my trip mileage after every fill-up. It was a risky system, but one I was used to. The drive was uneventful, and I made it to Andrew's place before sunset. His girlfriend wasn't around yet, so it was just me, him, and his roommate. We bought some cheap liquor, hung out at the apartment for a while, then headed to a local dive bar that didn't check IDs too closely. By the time we got back, it was nearly 2 a.m. I crashed on the couch, tired but content. The next night, things got weird. Andrew and his girlfriend got into a loud argument right in front of me. It turned nasty fast. I hadn't planned to leave that night, but the tension was too much. Around midnight, I decided to just drive home. The highway was empty and dark, pitch black in both directions. I rolled down the window, feeling the cold night air rush in. I was halfway home when the engine started sputtering. My stomach sank. I hadn't filled up the tank. The truck wheezed once more and gave out. I pulled to the side of the road and tried starting it again. Nothing. I checked my phone. No signal. Classic. I turned on my hazard lights and waited, hoping someone would pass by. Eventually, headlights appeared, but they sped past without slowing down. Then another. Again, no one stopped. I was just starting to drift off in the driver's seat when I heard a car door shut. Behind me. I jolted upright and checked my rearview mirror. A large pickup truck had pulled up, its headlights off. I turned around but saw no one. Cautiously, I got out and called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I checked the truck, no one inside. That's when the fear crept in. I returned to my car and locked the doors. Then came a tap on the window. A tall man stood there, grinning. "Hey, buddy," he said smoothly. "Need a hand?" I cracked the window. "Yeah, ran out of gas." "That's a shame," he said, still smiling. "Step out and give me a hand with something real quick." I thought he meant a gas can or jumper cables, but when I stepped out, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Empty your pockets." I froze. Then I ran. I dashed into the woods, weaving between trees, heart pounding, lungs burning. Behind me, I heard him yelling, "I'll kill you, you piece of..." I hid behind a massive pine and stayed there the entire night, barely breathing. I didn't dare move until the first light of dawn. When I returned, his truck was gone. My truck's doors were open. The glove box was emptied, and my flannel hoodie was missing. Probably the only thing of value I had. Hours later, a kind stranger finally stopped to help. He drove me to a gas station, and we returned with a can of fuel. I managed to get home safely. That night changed me. I had been naive. Now I never take long drives without filling the tank, and I never trust a friendly smile in the dark. The man in the kitchen. I live in Burke County, North Carolina, just outside the town of Morganton. It's a quiet, rural area where nothing much ever happens. At least, that's what I used to think. My husband and I own a modest home on a few acres of land. It's peaceful, surrounded by winding back roads and thick woods. But that night, peace was the last thing I felt. I work as a nurse, and my shifts rotate between days and nights. This happened after a grueling night shift that ended around 3 a.m. I was exhausted, hungry, and just wanted to be home in bed. On the way, I stopped at a small 24-hour gas station to grab $10 of gas and a pre-packaged sandwich. Inside the little shop's cafe area, I noticed a man standing near the back, not buying anything, just watching me. He gave me the creeps, so I finished my sandwich quickly and left. As I filled up my car, I noticed the gas smell was unusually strong. At the time, I brushed it off and got in to drive home. But a few miles down the road, I glanced at my dashboard, and my heart dropped. The gas needle had plummeted to empty, and the low fuel warning light blinked in red. Panicked, I pulled over and restarted the engine, hoping it was a glitch. It wasn't. The engine stuttered and died completely. My hands started to tremble. I called my husband immediately. Thankfully, he answered. I told him what had happened and that I could still smell gas. His voice grew serious. "It sounds like you have a fuel leak," he said. "Do you think someone tampered with your car?" My mind flashed back to the man in the gas station. As I stepped out to check under the car, I heard an engine approaching, no headlights. A vehicle slowed to a stop just behind mine. My heart pounded. I told my husband what was happening, and his voice turned urgent. "Get away from the car, now." I grabbed my keys, locked the car, and slipped into the woods along the side of the road. With only 2% battery left, I begged him to text me when he was close. I sprinted toward the first house I could find, a dimly lit property tucked deep off the main road. I rang the bell several times before a groggy older man in his 60s opened the door. I explained my situation in a rush and asked to use his phone and charge mine. After a brief pause, he nodded and let me in. I sat down in his living room, still in my nurse scrubs, heart still racing. From the kitchen, he called out, "Would you like a glass of water?" "Sure," I said automatically. But as he filled the cup, I noticed something chilling. A mirror on the wall gave me a partial view into the kitchen. I watched as he dropped something into the glass before walking out of view. When he handed me the cup, I took it but didn't drink. My instincts were screaming. He sat down across from me, watching me closely. "I just need to charge my phone," I said firmly. He nodded and said he'd go look for a charger upstairs. As soon as he left the room, I pulled out my phone and used the last bit of battery to send my location to my husband. I stood up, walked to the door as calmly as possible, then ran the moment I stepped outside. I hid near the tree line until I saw my husband's truck roll up the road. I ran to him, tears streaming down my face. When we got back to my car, the back window had been shattered. Someone had broken in, but nothing valuable was taken, just signs of rummaging and damage. The fuel line had been completely cut. Two strange men, two separate encounters. One single night. I didn't sleep for days afterward. The Stranger in the Rain. I was driving through a remote part of Oregon one night, headed home after a long shift delivering goods between towns. My route often cut through dense stretches of forest, where streetlights were a luxury and cell service was spotty at best. I'd done this drive dozens of times. It was supposed to be just another rainy night, but I'd soon learn that complacency can be dangerous, especially when you're alone and your gas tank is nearly empty. It started with a mistake, one I had made many times before. I hadn't refueled before leaving the last town. I thought I could make it back. But with the rain falling harder and the roads slick, I burned through gas faster than I expected. My dashboard dinged. Low fuel. I muttered a curse, checked my phone for the nearest gas station. No signal. Nothing but miles of trees and fog ahead of me. Within minutes, my truck sputtered, coughed, and rolled to a stop on the shoulder of a narrow road surrounded by woods on both sides. The only sound was the soft patter of rain on the windshield. I turned the key again. Nothing. I was officially stranded. I turned on my hazard lights and leaned back in my seat, trying not to panic. The road was dead silent. Not a single car passed for what felt like an hour. I was starting to consider sleeping in the truck until sunrise. Then, headlights. A set of dim beams emerged through the fog behind me. A truck pulled over about 50 feet back. It didn't have its headlights on when it stopped, which instantly struck me as odd. I watched through my mirrors, expecting someone to get out. Minutes passed. Nothing. Finally, the door of the truck creaked open. A figure stepped out. A tall man in a dark raincoat, hood pulled low over his face. His boots splashed softly as he walked slowly toward my vehicle. I cracked my window slightly as he approached. "Car trouble?" he asked in a low voice. "Yeah," I replied. "Ran out of gas." "Dangerous place to stop," he said. Before I could respond, he added, "There are things out here, not all of them friendly." I forced a polite laugh. "Yeah, guess I got lucky you stopped." He didn't laugh back. Then he just stood there, staring into the truck. His face was mostly in shadow, but something about his posture made my skin crawl. He was too still, too quiet. "I might have a gas can in the back of my truck," he finally said. "Come help me look." I hesitated. My instincts screamed no, but I didn't want to offend someone who might actually be trying to help. I grabbed my flashlight, got out, and followed him cautiously. His truck was old, mud-caked, and had no license plates. A red flag exploded in my brain. I froze. He looked over his shoulder. "Come on, it's right back here." That's when I saw movement inside his truck. Something or someone crouched in the back seat. My heart dropped. "I'll be fine," I said quickly. "Actually, my friend's coming to help me." His smile twitched into a scowl. "You sure?" I came a long way out of my way. "I'm sure," I said, stepping backward toward my truck. Without another word, he turned and climbed back into his vehicle. But instead of driving off, he sat there, watching. I locked myself inside and shut off all the lights. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After what felt like a lifetime, he finally drove off into the mist. By sunrise, a ranger's pickup passed by and helped me refuel. I told him everything. He looked at me and said, "You're not the first to report something like that out here."